Today I am super excited because we're going to be talking all about yellow chromes. I've wanted to make this video for such a long time, but in all honesty, yellow chromes are pretty hard to come by. I find that a lot of things that I think are going to pull yellow end up being more gold, and I just feel like there's not that many out there in general. I've had a handful of these come into my collection recently, so I thought now would be a perfect time for this video. And my goal was to use only shadows that are currently available in case you do end up wanting to pick one of these up. You don't have to experience the frustration of not being able to track it down. I'm going to do detailed swatches and try-ons of each and every one of these shades. And I'm going to go ahead and pop up my discount affiliate code with a few of the brands now. And I'll have everything listed and linked in the description box as well. Let's go ahead and get into it. The first shade I have is from Terra, and Terra actually just came out with a new collection, and the collection included several beautiful yellow shadows. There were actually 4. This is the shade called Lunar Lemon, and it's a very sheer yellow, and it has a blue-green shift to it. This is probably one of my favorite types of yellow chromes, and I actually have several options in this category as well. If you're trying to decide which one you like the best, I think the texture of each one kind of separates them a little bit. This one has a medium to larger sparkle particle size and is a little bit more textured, but that also gives it a pretty intense sparkle and shine on the lid. The next shade we have is called Limelight, also from Terra, and this one is more of a grungy mustardy yellow. This one ended up being one of my favorite shadows in the whole collection. I do like that this one is a little bit more opaque and it stays looking yellow on the lid when you apply it, but it also has this gorgeous strong green shift to it. But I really don't find that that takes over the yellow effect of the shade. Sometimes the green shift of a chrome can be so incredibly strong that it's all you can see, and I didn't feel that was the case with the shade Limelight. In the look that I'm sharing here, I actually paired it with some green mattes as well. But yellow in general, I just feel like looks so interesting paired with all different types of mattes. For me, it's especially shades like blue and purple. There's just so many different shades that contrast beautifully with a bright yellow. Next shade we have is Citrus Nebula, and this one is more of a yellow orange. I do feel like some people may see this one as a little bit more orange than yellow, but I don't know. I still feel like there's so much yellow in this shade. It's got a very similar texture to the shade Limelight. It's not flaky, but it's also not smooth. It's somewhere right in between, and it's incredibly sparkly and shifty. Like the shade Limelight, it shifts to a bright green. In fact, I do feel like maybe having both shadows may feel a little bit superfluous. So if you're trying to pick between the two shades, I'd say if you're going for something a little bit more yellow orange in base, go for Citrus Nebula, and maybe something a little bit more grungy yellow green, go with the shade Limelight. Both really beautiful shadows and definite standouts for me. Alright, and the next shadow I have is also from Terra. This is called Mercury Rising. I would describe it as a pale yellow. It may have just a little bit of a hint of peach in its base as well, and it has a strong blue-green sparkle and shift. Now this shade definitely gives the vibes of Lunar Lemon, but I would say the textures of the shades are quite different. Mercury Rising has a smoother texture overall and a smaller sparkle particle size. So I would say if you're trying to decide between the two shades, use the textures of them to help you make that decision. Mercury Rising is a shade that I really enjoy using as a highlighting shade on the inner corner, on the brow bone, and it's because it's a little bit smoother in texture, a little bit more sheer, which is my overall preference for highlighting shades. Alright, and I do have a couple of single shadows from Beaute Bar because they actually came out with a large number of single shadows recently. I was super excited because they also came out with the whole rainbow spectrum, just like Terra. This is the shade Citrine Radiance, which I would describe as a kind of yellow orange with maybe just a hint of red hollow. I very much enjoy the hollow shadows from Beaute Bar. I feel like they do them very well. They have included them in many palettes, and a yellow hollow is very unique in my collection. As you can see when I try it on, it has a pinky red shift to it. The second shadow I have from Bella Beaute bar is called Bright Halo. This is definitely one of the truest yellow shimmers that I'm showing. I mean that in the sense of this is just a yellow shimmer without much of a shift to it, though it does have really pretty multicolored sparkles throughout. Now, I did play around with using this as a highlighter, as you can see in this little video clip. I put it on the cheeks, on the tip of the nose, brow bone, even the lips, and I honestly thought it worked great for that purpose because you can sheer it out if you want. I feel like that's true of a lot of yellow chromes in general. Okay, and the next shade I'm including, I've talked about many times before, and it's one of the new Wet n Wild single shadows. This is one of the chameleon chromes and it's called Moon Flare. And what I really love about the Wet n Wild chromes is that I really do feel like the smoother texture of these shadows do lend themselves well to being used as highlighting shades. I'm pretty sure that these shadows are going to be permanent. I could be wrong, but they're doing so well for the brand that it would be silly of them to not keep them around. Moonflare is what I would describe as being a yellow-orange iridescent that has a beautiful green shift to it. If you have tried these iridescent shadows, definitely let me know in the comments. All right, the next shadow I have is definitely an oldie but a goodie. This is the shade Throne from Clionadh. I feel like this is one of their OG stained glass shadows. As you can see, the texture of this shade is quite smooth. It actually isn't very sparkly. It's got a bright yellow base and it shifts predominantly orange and pinky red. I like this shade a lot and I feel like the shift of this shade is particularly unique. As you can see when I try it on, it still looks yellow when it's on the lid. I mention this a lot because, the chrome shifts of a shadow can completely change the way that it looks on the lid, which can be a good thing, but if you're going for something that's yellow, it could be maybe a little frustrating too. But definitely a really cool shade and one that I don't hear people talking about. All right, and the next shade I have is Solarium. I feel like this is definitely a crowd favorite. It is what I would describe as a sheer yellow and it has a really bright blue-green shift. And I feel like it's definitely the shift in this shade that is so eye-catching. There's several other shades like this that I'm showing in this video. So again, I think it's going to come down to a texture preference. This shadow is pretty smooth in texture while still being quite sparkly. The sparkle particles are on the smaller side overall. And the shade itself is not as sheer as Mercury Rising or as the shade Lunar Lemon. It does still have some sheerness to it though, and if I wanted to bring out the maximum yellow in it, I would definitely layer it over a yellow matte, and it will look more yellow in general on people with a lighter skin tone. And really in general, that's something similar to a lot of the yellow chromes that I'm sharing. All right, and we have a Colourpop Super Shock shadow. This is the shade Tankini. This is honestly a gorgeous yellow shimmer, and if you're just looking for a good yellow shimmer shadow at a reasonable price point, I think that this really is a great option. There's no chrome shift to it, it's just a beautiful bright yellow. When I want to get a fuller opacity with the Super Shock shadows, I just layer them up, as you can see when I'm swatching it, and that's exactly how I applied it to the lid as well. I really like Colourpop's more vibrant Super Shock shadows, and I wish that they did them more often. It seems like they've done so many more neutral tones in general recently. The sparkles in Tankini are predominantly yellow and silver. All right, next shadow I have is another oldie but a goodie. This is the shade Lyra from Terra Moons, and I'm happy to say that this shade is still currently available. Of all the shadows that I've shown with this kind of sheer yellow base with a kind of intense blue-green sparkle and shift, this shade is probably the most standout in terms of its shift, its sparkle. It really is something else. So if you are looking for the one that has the most wow factor, it is going to be Lyra. Now, this shade is a little bit more textured. It does have what I would describe as medium to larger sparkle particles, so if that's not your jam, that is something to keep in mind. This is a shade that's definitely popular for a reason. Alright, and the last shade I have from Terra Moons is Enif. This is another oldie but a goodie. I believe it's been around for at least a year at this point. It's definitely not a shade I really hear people talking about, but it is one of the more unique yellows in my collection and among the ones that I'm showing you today. It's a sheer yellow and it has predominantly a pinky red sparkle and shift. The shift in it is giving some similar vibes to Throne from Clionadh. Throne has a little bit more red orange in it than this shade, and of course the textures are completely different. Throne really isn't sparkly and Enif is incredibly sparkly, but in terms of the sparkle and shift, they do have some similar vibes. Alright, next shadow I have is from Touch of Glam Beauty. Touch of Glam I actually think have a few yellow shimmer shadows. The shade is called Yellow Butterflies and it's one of the Color Me multi-shadows. All of the shadows that are in the square pan are in that line. It's what I would describe as being a pastel yellow and it has predominantly pink and a little bit of pinky red sparkle and shift. As you can see when I try it on, this is another yellow that it really does feel like stays yellow on the lid. The texture of the Color Me multi-shadows is so unique. I actually have really never tried anything like it. It feels soft, super high impact. You need just the softest touch in the pan to pick up the pigment. Texturally, they're just such a unique experience. The next shade we have is from Sheeneffect. I have talked about the shades from Sheeneffect many times and I actually have a dedicated video to their shadows. It's a Chinese beauty brand that makes some beautiful chrome shades. Love the smoother texture of a lot of their shadows. This is one of their newer shades called Striking. It's what I would describe as kind of a champagne golden leaning yellow. I actually debated whether I was going to include this shadow or not, but when I tried it on, I still did feel like it fell under the yellow umbrella. It doesn't have much of a chrome shift to it to my eye, and the sparkle particles in it are on the smaller side. I've had some questions about where you can find Sheeneffect, and there's actually lots of options, including YESSTYLE, Look Healthy Store, and C Beauty Mall. And I'm sure there's even more. I know they're on TikTok Shop, but sometimes it's hard to find some of the shades there. Okay, last but not least, we have a shade from a brand called Spenny, which is another C Beauty brand. I really enjoy these shimmer shadows. I think in part because they're quite nostalgic to me. They're these baked shimmers. These baked dome shimmers were some of the first eyeshadows that I ever used. And honestly, I just feel like they have a really cool effect on the lids. You can see that even though they have a drier texture because they're baked shimmers, they have almost a wet effect on the lid. This shade, again, like the one from Sheeneffect, is a little bit more of a golden champagne yellow, but I still felt like it was worth including it, and I just really like these shimmers from Spenny. I think they're a lot of fun, and you can find them in all of the same places you can find Sheeneffect. Here is what all of the shades I just talked about and tried on look like swatched to my arm. I have so missed making this style of video. It definitely is one of my favorite types to make in general. And it's been really fun talking about a category of shimmer that in general I feel like is a little bit more hard to come by. I do feel like yellow in general is a little bit more of a polarizing color, although I've had a lot of people tell me that they've been looking for yellow shimmer options. And I would love to hear about yellow shimmers that you've tried, maybe that I haven't included in this video. I feel like we got some great options here, but I am curious if there are any other yellow chromes that are like possible to make, to formulate. I'm kind of curious if a yellow purple shifting chrome is possible. If you made it to the end of this video, please leave me a yellow heart emoji. And let me know what type of shimmer shadow you might be keen to nerd out over next. As always, I hope you found this video helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.